Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Darlington.
Good evening. Okay, I think that's exactly 10 minutes. Let's make a start now. Let's begin. Okay, I thought I'd begin today by showing you what the job market looks like for a PM. Obviously, everyone that finishes the course that we run, you become immediately, with the skills that you gather, you become immediately able to apply for some product management roles in the market. And here, junior product. So just to show you an example, this is project, we're not doing project. So here's an example, junior product manager role. This is paying up to, the range is between 30 and 37K per year. Yes, you could equally apply for much more senior roles, but you can see this is, we don't know how senior this is, but it's just a product management role. So I like to advise people to get something that allows you to learn. Okay, I think I'm not sharing my screen. Just give me a minute.
Yes, very good. I got notice.
Okay. You see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen now.
Okay, good. Someone's trying to join. Okay. So I thought I'd show you guys, what that looks like at the moment. You know, if you should, if you are able to land a product management role, if you're searching, just search for something junior PM, and effectively with such a role, they would give you, because you have an idea of what product management is, and from all of the exercises that we do, you'll be able to fit in really well uh, into such a role. And you can see it's a starting salary of 30 to 37,000 pounds per year, and some of these roles they do offer remote, and some of them would actually be willing to sponsor you, give you sponsorship. So, and then along the line, this is, let's say, 2-3 years time, you can apply for roles like these, 71 to 75,000 pounds a year. So the prospect, no one joins a field and immediately starts earning this much. That's insanity. That's not how it works. You need to build your way up. So that's why I advise always joining, looking for either product manager role, either you search for product manager or junior product manager. That's key. Don't be, enticed by something like senior, because you will go there and you don't really have enough experience to command these kinds of roles. So my best advice is always begin by searching for junior product management roles. And I'm going to share this platform. So for those of you, you can create an account, and then when you have time, book an appointment anytime on Friday and Saturday. We can have a meeting to review your CV. For those of you that already have a CV, we can help you to create a product manager CV. So then you'll be able to come in on this platform and just search junior product manager role. There are a range of other platforms as well that you could use. It's not just this. There is LinkedIn. LinkedIn, you can also search for roles like these. So this is just to give you some inspiration that the future is bright. So all the activities that we have to do in the course, engage in them, do them, and learn from them, because ultimately, if you become really good at what you do, then the chances of you getting a role is really high. When you go for an interview, you're going to be able to communicate and let others understand what your skills are, and you're going to be able to persuade people to give it a chance and hire you. That's the goal. Okay, that's done now. We can move on to today's class. Any questions on that before I move on? Okay, no question. No worries. Right, let's begin. So, key takeaways for today. Number one is we're going to look through today's lesson 4. We're going to focus on defining the product vision and product strategy. And that, how does that translate to our book? That's chapter 4. So this is what you have to read for the week. This week, you have to read chapter 4. Please make sure you do before Sunday next week to solidify the understanding. So we'll go through the concepts today, but make sure you read chapter 4. Okay, so key takeaways that we'll learn in building an effective product vision and product strategy is how to identify market opportunities. We've begun on this. Most of you that sent your survey, the survey that you did, you created a survey and you synthesized and did the research to summarize those insights and those findings. That's one way. I hope you spent time and really trying to understand what exactly you were doing and trying to understand those takeaways and trying to identify opportunities. That's what this is, identifying market opportunities. If you do a survey, then you're going to analyze those problems and you're going to try and see what problems you can solve. So I've put that. So when we discuss product strategy in general, we're thinking from, okay, we have a problem that exists in the market. How do we solve that? So really it's trying to develop a consolidated, trying to understand what your organization does. I think that's the first thing. If you work for WhatsApp, what does WhatsApp do? WhatsApp is a communication platform that enables people to send messages, to send pictures, to make phone calls. There's a range of things that they do. So ultimately, if you're a product manager at WhatsApp, and you've been allocated a function within WhatsApp, maybe you've been told to work with the WhatsApp team that tries to simplify communication, then your role therefore relies on helping WhatsApp to produce a platform that is simple and easy to use in terms of messaging. So let me give you an example what that looks like in practice. So you join WhatsApp. WhatsApp would have several teams. There is a payment team. So you think, how does payment work in WhatsApp? Well, everyone at some point has to pay. There was a time that WhatsApp had to do with payment. If you run a business WhatsApp, it's not exactly free. I think for every 5 years you have to pay. You have to pay an amount. So there's payment. There is messaging. So if I send you a message on WhatsApp, like we always do, that's messaging. So if you're a PM in messaging, then your role is to try and simplify it, to try and make messaging as great as possible. That's your role. And then there is image, call that pictures, maybe. Pictures. So here, when you're sending messages that involve sending pictures. To send someone a picture, WhatsApp. That's why when you send pictures on WhatsApp, it's not really great. The resolution is it's not as good as it should be. So there's a team on WhatsApp that deals with that. And so if you join WhatsApp and they allocate you to the pictures team, then that will be your concern. How do we make sending images on WhatsApp as good as it can be? And then there is on WhatsApp, there is groups. We currently belong to a group on WhatsApp together where we share things to you guys. How do we ensure that groups have the best experiences as much as possible? When messages are sent, when images are sent, all of these things. So you can see these are all groups. No one joins WhatsApp and then becomes a jack of all trade, works on payment, messaging, pictures, groups. No, when you join any company, they allocate you to a specific project or product. And so if they allocate you to WhatsApp groups, then that becomes your role to help WhatsApp groups become as great as it can be. So I wanted to illustrate this to help you, understand a picture of how, as a product manager, how you can be of great value to the organization. So I'll give you an example of product strategy before we go into the class. At a high level, I think we've all done this. Everyone in the class today should have done a quantitative survey. So when you hear this is going to be your bread and butter as a product manager, you're going to have to be really, really good at creating effective product strategies. And that all that means is you have to be good at identifying problems and then creating a plan to resolve those problems. So if you join WhatsApp and they told you that you would be helping WhatsApp to design and create groups that are much better than they currently are, then for you to do so, how do you know what problems users are having? You need to first speak with them. So the first thing you would do is to think of conducting a primary research, and that could be a quantitative or qualitative. And quantitative refers to surveys, and qualitative refers to interviews, focus groups, all of those kinds of research. You call them qualitative. And then we've all done some quantitative over the past 2 weeks. I believe you've done surveys, and then you learn how to synthesize those surveys, summarize your findings. So the first thing is to design and conduct a survey. So you create as many questions as you see fit that will help you to understand the problem that users are having. So if you come up with an hypothesis that users are struggling with sending messages, whatever the problem may be, you're a product manager for a said company, whatever that company does, they've brought you in and they've told you the problem they're having. You understand the problem, and then you proceed to seeking to understand it further. You understand it further by speaking with users, by speaking with customers. And how do you speak with customers? You design 2 ways. You either choose to conduct surveys or you choose to conduct interviews or focus groups. These are some of the ways you can do so. So we've learned how to create surveys. Interviews will be in the same manner. Create a bunch of questions and then bring your customers in. So that would be inviting your customers maybe on a Zoom or in person, and then you have the conversation with them. You ask them the questions. I think we've all seen interviews on TV, on televisions, and it's a matter of you sitting down with someone, ask them questions, they will respond, back and forth, and that's how you will do that. And then with focus groups. It will be, think of us, everyone in this class right now. I will simply pose a question, and then we'll go around the room, and then everyone would give a response to that question. And then we'll go around trying to ensure that everyone understands what the question is and try to assemble those responses and get to a point of agreement or a disagreement, but just everyone having a conversation within this class. That's what a focus group would be. And you can choose whichever one you see fit. Most often, the organization you join, they will tell you what types of qualitative interviews they like to perform. Some people only like interviews, but for this class, for the purpose of this class, I just want you to be aware of these techniques, which is to be aware of how to conduct interviews. I can sit down with James and say, James, tell me about yourself. What did you have for breakfast today? How was your week? These are some of the questions I can post in an interview, in a one-to-one interview. If I was interviewing James and Grace, I can say, guys, tell me about what's been the best thing about the class so far. James might say, actually, it's the timeliness of our classes. Grace might say, I really love the concepts that are being introduced. So that's a group interview. That's more than one. So that's what an interview means. And then I will go through a bunch of questions, maybe let's say 10 questions. And then we'll get to the synthesis phase. So synthesizing research findings. You've done this for surveys, if you remember. So it's just looking at responses from candidates. So you did 10 interviews, you did 10 questions, and those questionnaires were completed and sent to you, and then you synthesize question 1. What did people say? What are the patterns that you've recognized? What are the responses? And where the responses are similar, you start to draw some insights from those, and that's how you identify problems. So learning how to synthesize, that was a major part of last week's exercise. I wanted you guys to know how to do that, which is look at responses from your surveys and then draw out key insights. So for those of you that have done that, I would love for you to master that process. That's really key. As a PM, you should be really great at doing that, looking at research, looking at surveys that have been responded to, and then draw key insights from them. And then based on those key insights that you draw, those key findings, what did you find? Some of you, from what you sent to me, I didn't really see any key findings. It was more, some of you saying 3 people answered XYZ. Key findings is, really digging in to say, we found that customers had a shared problem, or we found that the most disturbing things to customer was XYZ. So being able to make such statements, not just merely stating the obvious, but being able to dig deep to find out what core problems were. I think I showed an example here. So these were some of the synthesis. Just to pick an example. So here, privacy is a significant concern for many respondents. What does that mean? This means that any product feature that if we are to resolve it, if this is a concern for customers, then we have to resolve it. Resolving it means in building the product, in building the solution, the software solution, we need to consider adding privacy features. Yeah, if think of your current mobile banking app. Imagine anyone can pick your phone and log straight in. That would be a concern, right? So if that's a concern, how does your current banking provider resolve that? They resolve that by asking each time you launch the app, you should put a pin that allows you to launch the app, to open the app. So that's a problem. And I've also just described how your banking provider resolves that problem. They resolve it by building a feature that allows you to put in a pin. So that makes the assumption that whoever puts in the right pin would A, have the permission to launch the app, or B, must be the owner. And so it resolves the tension or friction that and those concerns that people may have in terms of their privacy. So when you draw summaries of your findings, I want you to give more details of what they mean. Don't just leave them unsupported. Make sure that it's clear. Write a bit more. Tell me more about what that finding means. So this is something I notice across the board for everyone. So tell me more. Actually write it down. If users are having concerns about privacy, what does that mean? That must mean something. So you stipulate how you, as a PM, you hope to resolve that problem for users. As a product manager, your core responsibility is to solve customer problems. If customers have problems, then your role is to solve them, resolve them, so they cease to have those problems. Okay, and so we've learned how to conduct primary research. We've learned how to synthesize and analyze those research and drawing out findings of what they mean, because we do surveys and interviews to understand problems that customers are having, and then we analyze the responses to state what those problems are, and then we choose the ones that we want to solve. Not all problems are the same. Some problems we actually don't care. Some problems maybe we'll do them later. Some problems we need to solve them now. So we solve them relative to the market. If the market, for example, right now globally, there is the rise of AI, artificial intelligence, and using data to solve customer problems. So that means we should be, as a company, any company you join right now would be really solid on driving down. Their core focus would be to use data to solve customer problems. And some of that, they will have the data already. Some of that, they'll have data, but they'll want to understand more. So in trying to figure out what the problems are, you would then do some research, some primary research, to validate those existing problems and rank them. And then you would then pick the top priority problem and develop a product vision for it. So, as I said, what problem have you identified from the research conducted? That's the whole purpose of doing the research, is to identify the number one priority problem. So, one of your exercise for the week, for those of you that have completed the research last week, would be, what problem did you identify? Write a one paragraph summarizing that problem, and then we then move on to the next thing, which is, did you have any idea of a problem that you perceive customers face? Did you have an idea prior to the research? What made you even decide to do for example, some of you did research, did an interview, you did a survey for Monzo Bank. My question to you would be, why did you choose to do Monzo? What problems did you believe Monzo had? So key thing, number one, what problems did you identify for the surveys that you did? And then, did you have any preconceived idea of the problems customers face? Did you have any preconceived idea of the problems that customers face? Okay, and then the next will be summarize your vision for how the problem will be resolved. So that means just tell me about how you want the problem to be resolved. I'll put it here. Tell me about how you want the problem to be resolved. How do you want it to be resolved? You've identified a problem, great, but how do you want it to be solved? And then, so that's what it means to develop a vision. These are the things you answer. And in the product management world, these things that we have here, they can take you up to 3 or 4 months to do. So don't worry, they do take a while to create. And so the plan is to every exercise that you do just gets you one step closer. And then the next one is to define the product strategy. That means research existing market, look in the market. So if you did a survey on Monzo Bank, your next course of action would then be actually what's happening across the market. Let me show you an example of what that might be. Okay, this. So this is a bank many of you might know. It's called Kuda. This bank. I don't know how many of you have seen this, but it's one of these neobanks. It's new to the market and it's really making a wave. They've launched in Nigeria, currently trying to launch in Ghana and Uganda. So it's really making strides. So if you were a PM at this company, then you will need to understand the environment. Understanding the environment means trying to understand what's happening around the world in terms of banking. So you do what's known as benchmarking. Within Nigeria, how many banks are there in Nigeria? So you can see here, this screen is showing you a bunch of banking institutions in Nigeria. So there is Union Bank, that's there. So doing this really allows you to see the entire landscape. So these are a host of banks within Nigeria. So it allows you to know what your competition is doing. How are they solving customer problems? And then you then say, okay, it would be nice to understand the benchmark across the African continent. So within Ghana, you can see all of the banks in Ghana. Thank you to the internet, we can do this. We don't have to be in Ghana to do so. We can just research on the internet. And then within Kenya, you can see banks in Kenya. So this allows you to understand two things. The first thing is to understand what kinds of user interfaces are being used. So when you craft your user interface, it allows you to see how you can communicate best with customers. So when you decide to launch in the likes of Ghana or Uganda, you've done your benchmarking across the continent. So you know what styles are most effective at reaching out to users. You can see this bank, Consolidated Bank, it looks like a family bank. It's a family here, so that's good. It gives you an idea of how you need to position your value proposition. And then we also you look across competitive offerings in the US. You can see here the a range of banks. Again, the same thing. This is a very thorough way of doing things. And then here it's again the same thing, benchmarking in Germany. You learn a lot by doing this. You learn how to communicate within the banking industry. If you've joined a neobank like this, if you've joined a banking institution as a product manager, then having that knowledge globally, it really helps you to communicate with, either internally with your colleagues or in really trying to understand customer pain points from your interactions with customers. So back to our product strategy definition. So you do that as known as existing research, just to understand how do you arm yourself with knowledge of what's going on around several markets within the Nigerian market, the African market, and global markets. So how are competitors currently solving the problem? So whatever problem you identified in your research, you want to understand how other people, other companies, firms are currently solving that problem. That's really good to do. And then the next thing is you create user personas. I'll show you what user personas look like. You create user personas to help you understand what type of people are facing the problems you are attempting to solve. So you need to know what kind of person is facing the problems that you have identified, and then you can build a relationship with those people. Then you can empathize with them. You can understand how they feel, how they think. All of that, it's crucial, very useful. And then what is your unique value proposition? How do you intend to solve the problem for these people? And then we then look at what are your core features, and then what exactly would you do to resolve those problems? And then what is your product roadmap? And how will you track that you have solved the problem? How will you know that's your KPIs? So you define your KPIs. And then once you've done all of these, then you're ready. You can then take your product roadmap and then bring the team. So communicate this with your development team. So you begin the implementation of your product with your software engineering team. So that includes the likes of your business analysts, your QA quality analysts, your software engineers, your UI, user interface designers, UX designers, your software architects, and database engineers. And that's it. So you sit these people down and you tell them about what your roadmap is, what the problem is you're trying to solve, and you show them the features that you need them to build. And then they bring their expertise. They help to break down the roadmap even further. And so you then take that into your delivery approach, which could be a Scrum approach or a waterfall approach. We'll get to this next week. But for this week, our focus is on this. I just thought I'd give you an overview, and then we'll go into exactly what everything I've explained there means. So, without further ado, let's begin. I hope you can all still see my screen.
Yes, I can see your screen, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for being proactive, James. Thank you. What is the product vision? Product vision is essentially, it's a long-term goal that outlines what the product aims to achieve. The whole, as I've articulated here, essentially when you do this, your goal is to tell people, because you're, as a PM, when you do this, this is a day-to-day thing, and it can take you up to 6 months sometimes to round up everything and bring it and make it reasonable to now where anyone else can read it and have an understanding of what you're trying to do. So your product vision is essentially you stating what the problem is that you've identified in the market and how you're trying to resolve that. I gave the example earlier of, let's say, your banking app. Let's say you have a banking app with OPay, and each time you open the OPay app, it just launches. OPay or PalmPay, it just launches, and it doesn't take into consideration that someone else might be launching your app, and then now they log into your app and then they see money in your account and they can transfer it to themselves. That's not very safe. So as a PM, you've been hired to come in and create a vision that you will be able to persuade the company to invest in solving that problem. That's the summary of what a product vision is. So the company is aware that currently there is no protection for people launching their app. So if you go on your home screen, you open your phone, you select PalmPay app, it launches immediately, and whoever launches the app can see your bank balance. That's not great. So we need to come up with a solution to solve that problem. The problem there is privacy. There is no security that protects people from launching the app. And that means anyone that has access to my phone can immediately launch an app and they get to see my full bank balance. That's something that I should be in control of, not anyone that launches my phone can see it. So we need a measure to be able to protect people that will launch their apps. And so that's the vision articulated. So when you think of a long-term vision, or a product vision in general, it's essentially being able to state what problem you have identified. So you will write this in a paragraph and then explain it. So the problem we have identified with the PalmPay app that we need to resolve is that currently customers launching their app, they are taken immediately straight to their bank balance, which is not great, to their homepage. And on the homepage, if someone else was to launch the app, they will be able to see their bank balance. So we're currently not protecting customers. You would explain it. And with those explanations, anyone else that gets to read what your product vision is would immediately understand. So I would love for everybody to practice crafting a product vision. So that's something that would be, so in using your surveys, I would love for everyone to be able to give me a sentence on and explain their product visions. I'll give 2 minutes. Using the surveys that you did, I would love for you to explain what problems you identified, what problems you're trying to solve. So in 2 minutes time, please spend this time, think of what problem you're going to try and explain. Okay, who wants to go first? I'll pick randomly. We don't have much time, guys, so I'm just gonna pick. James, you're first here. Do you want to go first?
Okay, thank you, Darlington. One of the problems that I noticed from the survey is that the USSD code, which was aiding people that were out of network areas, they removed it. So by reintroducing it, it will help people who are maybe running low on data to access their OP apps. Because sometimes if you have network issues, you might not be able to transfer money using your OP app. So I feel by reintroducing the USSD code, it will help a great number of users.
Okay. Well, that's good.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for that. Kevin, I think you're next here. Okay, we don't have much time, guys, so I'm gonna call you. If you don't unmute yourself, then I'm going to skip you. I'm going to assume you don't want to participate, and I'll skip you. Adobe.
Hello.
Hi.
This is my first time in this
Okay.
class,
Okay.
so I don't have any business or what to do the survey on. So
All
I'll
right.
get around it anyway. Thank you.
All right, no problem. I would charge Godfrey to communicate the exercise with you, and then you can do the research, the survey. You can design the survey.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
That's okay. Louisa.
Yeah, good evening.
Good
Sorry,
evening.
I haven't done mine yet.
Okay, no problem. Grace. Okay. Stella. Okay. Let's move on. It seems James, you got ahead of it with everyone. Right. So I think that this exercise it's crucial for everyone. I would need everybody to do this, as I showed right at the beginning of the class. I it's something that it's necessary. You need to have an understanding because it underpins everything that we'll do moving forward. If you don't understand how to design a survey and then get people to complete it, so you, as I showed here, you design a survey, get people to complete the survey, and then you take each response. So here, for instance, you summarize each responses in that manner. You don't need a phone, you don't need a laptop to be able to do this. You can equally do it on your phone, or you can equally write it on paper. The key is that you are able to get the skills. It will take you longer on the phone. I get that. I understand, but it's about getting those skills. And then responses. So I did responses from 5 people, and I asked that for you guys to get responses from 10 people. So you would then take those responses in that manner. So you can see respondent 1, this person, these were their responses to the 10 questions. And then this person, these were their responses. So I can see immediately if I compare respondent number 2, respondent number 1, I can see that there are some differences in their responses. And ultimately, that's good to see. And then if I compare now 10 different responses, I can then start to see the differences. I can then start to see where those responses are similar. Let's say, for instance, the problem that James explained in his research, he could see that most people were perhaps having those sorts of problems. How did he know? Because they specifically said so in their responses. And so you can then draw that insight that actually this would be something that we need to resolve for our customers, because we've received these responses, and ultimately it leads to, that might be number one problem to be fixed. There might be other problems as well. So being able to then rank those problems to say the top problems based on the responses was number 1, number 2, number 3. So you rank them, and then you can then take that moving forward, and that helps you when you're creating your product vision. You can then explain what the problem is. So as I said here, what problem have you identified from the research conducted? So you pick it may be that you identified 5 different problems, but pick the one that you feel is the most important to solve. So if you identified more than one problem, that's fine. You can pick one that you feel is the most important to be solved. Not all problems will be important. Some problems will be less important. So how do you know which is the most important problems? I leave that to your judgment. So the key is that you be able to explain. If someone asks you, why did you choose this problem over another problem, you'll be able to explain. You give a reason as to why. Okay, let's move on. And so that's a product vision. Tell me what problem you're trying to resolve. Explain it in one paragraph. Give me some detail around it. Don't just tell me the problem we're trying to resolve, for example, is to help people protect their bank accounts. That's not very meaningful. Give me more depth around it. Explain some more. And what do you find? What do you find in a product vision? You find that product visions are usually customer focused. As I said, you can see the problem that I explained. I said customers are struggling at the moment. Their bank accounts are not protected. They can simply, this is a fictional example, by the way. It's not the case on Pompeii. It's just fictional. As I said, it was. Imagine Pompeii, just anyone can pick up your phone, and if you had a Pompeii bank account and they launch the app, it will take them straight to your homepage where they can see access to your current bank balance. That's not very safe. So one way to do that is to solve that problem. And so you can see that in explaining that, it's very customer focused. So that product will resolve that problem for customers. So when you think of your problems that you identify, they need to be solving problems for customers. So the question I will pose to you, James, is what you identified, is that benefiting customers? If it is, then that means you're customer focused, which is good. That's where you should be. So whatever product or features you identified, they need to be customer focused, customer centric. And then the next one is problem statement, what problem it solves, which we've already discussed. You need to be able to articulate the problem right within, in some cases, when you're trying to explain it to people within your team, maybe let's say the company, you need to be able to explain what the problem is. Explain the problem, and then what what actually does that problem prevent moving forward? In my example, it prevents the case of someone stealing your money, the case of someone gaining access to your bank account, so unauthorized access. So these are some of the problems that it solves. So you need to be able to include in your problem statement, what problem does it actually solve? And then the next is the impact. What impact or improvement does it aim to create? In my example that I gave, the impact is it's now possible for various customers to log into their bank account and feel safe and feel protected. I no longer have to worry. If someone picks my phone and they try to open my PalmPay bank account, I have nothing to worry about because I know that it's going to ask them to log in, maybe put in the PIN. What's the PIN? They have no idea what the PIN is. So my bank account is protected. So that's the solution that I am proposing. And then the inspiration, of course, it motivates stakeholders. What's the motivation to stakeholders? The motivation is as different stakeholders across the company, whether marketing, what's the role of marketing in any company is to promote the company positively. So if the company has a loophole within our banking application, then that's making it difficult for the marketing team to promote the product, because whenever they try to promote, customers will complain that the app isn't as good. So that makes their job even harder. And then with finance, if we as a bank don't have many people joining us, then how are we going to make as much money as we should? And finance wants to help the company make as much money as possible. So you can see that the problem that I have identified is actually one that will motivate stakeholders within the company. So whether my legal colleagues, or whether my marketing colleagues or finance colleagues or project managers or engineering colleagues within the company, everybody will be motivated. Everyone would want to help to resolve that problem because it's a big enough problem and is one that is worthy of being solved. And then we move on to crafting that vision. So with that vision, once you've articulated a problem statement, always write it 1 or 2 paragraphs, just explaining in detail what the problem you've identified is. And then next step, you think about, following a more formal approach, which is you being able to research your insight. So you do some market analysis. Now you have your problem statement well written and it's there, so it always guides you. Each time you begin your market analysis, you can look at the problem statement to just be like your map. It directs you so you don't deviate and start solving other problems. So you do market analysis based on the problem you've identified. So you look in the market. In the example that I gave, you can say, well, how are current banking apps currently designed? So I can download for example, I can download, let's say, Access Bank or GT Bank. Once I download these apps, if I have a bank account with them, fantastic. I can see what happens. Whenever I launch my app, what happens? Does it open straight and takes me to the home page? Or does it ask me to put in a security PIN that would validate that it's me launching the app? If it does so, then that further backs my argument and supports the claim that we need to solve that problem on our app. And then the next thing is to review customer feedback. So look at customer feedback on several platforms. Most companies have a way of listening to customer feedback, and all you need to do is to speak with your manager or speak to the marketing team within the company and you simply put it as a question. Do we have a way of listening to customer complaints? They will respond with yes, we do, or no, we don't. And if they do, then you can look into that by collecting the feedback, and in the same way you know how to synthesize is to read and synthesize some of the core complaints that relate to the problem that you're trying to solve. And then once you've done that, it gives you an idea as to whether that problem again is big enough. And then if it is, you are able to proceed to the next step, which is brainstorming. Now you've identified that problem is definitely one that should be solved. So you move on to a more collaborative session with different stakeholders. So you invite people, you create a meeting, and invite people into the likes of Miro, if it's done remotely. And when people come in Miro, you would have designed a workshop that you would want them to be able to contribute to. I think everyone would have to do I will want everyone by the end of this course to know how to design a collaborative workshop. That's a goal, because as a PM, that's something you have to be good at. So everyone to design a workshop and then make it engaging enough. I will lead by showing you guys an example, and then you will all take it and apply it to your problem, and then lead one with the entire class. And then you move on to drafting that vision, which is write, review, refine your vision statement. You would have done what you've done initially is a problem statement. What is a problem? And then now is your vision statement. How do you wish for that problem to be resolved? And then you incorporate with so in your collaborative brainstorming session with several people, you simply read the problem that you found, and then everyone that's involved in the meeting, they will be chipping in, they'll be giving you ideas on how they think that problem should be solved, and all of it is being written down and captured, and you will all see how that is done when we do a sample workshop together. But effectively, being able to capture everyone's input and contributions to how a problem should be solved, that is what helps you in drafting. Give me a minute, guys. Someone is trying to join. Godfrey. Okay, and then we move on. So right here. Okay, so when it comes to crafting a product vision, we think about okay. When it comes to crafting a product vision, we think about essentially how do we push the product vision to be achieved. And it involves following a series of steps, which we saw here, which is we begin by creating a primary research, which is creating a survey or interviews, and then summarizing those interviews. So the product strategy then, what is it? I need for you guys to understand what it is before you know how it is done. When you hear product strategy, you hear this quite often in the product management world. You will hear, but effectively what that means is it's a plan. That's all it is. It's a plan that outlines how the product vision will be achieved. So remember, in the product vision, you simply, at the end of it, what you will have is maybe 1 or 2 paragraphs that summarize a problem, and 1 or 2 paragraphs that summarize the vision statement, which is problem statement. What is a problem that we've identified? James, you identified a problem. You simply write 1 or 2 paragraphs for that problem, and that will make that's known as your problem statement. And then the next step is to summarize your solution. How do you hope to resolve that problem that you've summarized in 1 or 2 paragraphs? And that essentially will be your solution statement. So there's your problem statement and your solution statement. Your problem statement summarizes the problem, 1 or 2 paragraphs, and then your solution statement summarizes how you want that problem to be addressed. And ultimately, that makes your product vision. Yeah, so you end up with with 2 or 4 paragraphs that summarize. The first 2 paragraphs summarize your problem statement, and then the next one is your solution statement. So you can, again, the same thing, 1 or 2 paragraphs to summarize that. Okay, and then, so we said earlier that a product strategy is a plan. It's a plan that shows how you want to solve the problem that you have summarized earlier, which is your problem statement and your solution statement. So now your product strategy is going to take that product vision and make it achievable, actionable. It breaks it down into steps. So step 1, we're going to do X, Y, Z. Step 2, we're going to do, so your product strategy is a plan that shows it in more steps. Whereas your product vision is just a high-level document that anyone can read. It gives them an understanding of what problem you're trying to resolve. And now your plan, your product, which is your product strategy, is going to then break that down into actionable steps. And the purpose is to guide decision making and prioritization. And all that means is you have a bunch of things that you've identified that in your solution statement, how you wish for that to be done, but you need to prioritize. Not everything can be done, so you need to prioritize, and there are a range of things that you will have to do. And the key characteristics are your product strategy has to be actionable, measurable, and adaptable. Actionable, it simply means the things that you put in there have to be achievable, and they have to be things that can be implemented and acted upon. And then you need to be able to measure them. And then how do you measure them? You need to be able to test them. That once you've implemented them, how do you know that you've achieved them? And then the last thing is adaptable. You need to be able to, change. If you identified a much better way of doing something, it needs to be, fluid and flexible. And that's key. Okay. And then we move on to components of a strong product strategy. Effectively, all this means is with a product strategy, as I said, you have is first and foremost is a plan. And given that it's a plan, it means you need to have, there's several things that must feature within that plan. And one of the first things that needs to feature within that plan is your goals and objective. What exactly are you trying to do? So, and these goals must be specific and have measurable outcomes attached to them. So, for example, that I keep using is Pompeii, which is customers being able to launch an app without any security measures. And one thing we want to be able to measure there would be how many customers launch the app, how many customers are complaining about this. And if we found that 200,000 customers are launching the app, then that impacts enough people to warrant us being willing to solve this problem. And then pushes us to the next component that we need to know, which is define the customer segment. And fortunately for us, this really affects everyone. So it's not specific. It's not a specific customer segment. For example, if this was a problem that impacted only personal bank account holders, but actually it also impacts business account holders. So business and personal account holders are impacted. Therefore, we don't need to worry about trying to define the segment. So, but for your case, whatever problem you identify, you need to think in terms of the target market. And we'll look into that. You'll see how that's done. We'll go through that so you can see. And then the value proposition, this simply means what are the unique benefits and how are these benefits different from what your competitors are doing. And then we'll design a roadmap. A roadmap is essentially a timeline and milestones that guide what you're doing. So, for example, you say we're going to launch these features in the next 3 months. You should be able to say exactly when those features will be done. So let's say, for example, you say in the next 2 weeks, we're going to achieve the first thing in the project. So you allocate time to your deliverables. So this is about allocating time to your deliverables. And all this means is being able to state all of the things that you want to achieve. So you've identified the problem, and you've also been able to explain how you wish for that problem to be solved. Now, you take how you wish for that problem to be solved, you break it down, and you list all of the things that you broke down, and ultimately that forms your roadmap. And then you think about KPIs, your key performance indicators. So how do you track your success? How do you measure that you're doing really well? Again, we'll go through that as well so you see what that looks like. But ultimately, these 5 items are the key things that need to feature in your product strategy document. So this is a document and it needs to include these 5 key areas. When developing a product strategy, you need to be very clear. So you need to use what's known as SMART objectives, which is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. So for each feature that you put in, you need to be able to track it and say how it benefits your users. And if it's an item that benefits your users, that's ultimately what you want, because remember, you want to be customer centric. And then we need to understand the market. Understanding the market means doing a competitive analysis and being able to write customer personas. We've seen this. I think we'll see it. We'll see an example. I've done an example product roadmap, an example product strategy, and you'll be able to see all of these things. And you've done a customer survey. Again, that's primary. So understanding the market, you can also say primary research, and that could be a survey or it could be interviews. And then you define your USP, which is your value proposition. It's how unique you are from your competitors, and you create a product roadmap, which I explained earlier, and then how do you track it? So let's move on. When you do a product roadmap, you need to ensure that it's consistent, and all that means is your vision and your strategy must complement each other. If you identify, remember your vision is your articulation. I said you should write a 1 or 2 paragraph that summarizes the problem statement. So your vision includes the problem statement and the solution statement. Problem statement summarizes the problem. Solution statement summarizes how the problem should be solved. And then now your strategy is a document that explains how you wish to solve that problem, just in more detail, how you are going to solve it. And then you must regularly review your product strategy and your product vision to ensure that the changes and the processes and the steps that you've identified, you must ensure that they're still in alignment with what the market currently demands. Say, for example, you decide to create a pin that protects customers from whenever someone launches, the PalmPay app, and then it turns out that customers don't care about that problem anymore. Should you still go ahead and solve it? The answer is no. So you must always update your product strategy to ensure that it's up to date with what is currently transpiring in the market. So always testing. Are customers still still facing this problem? If the answer is yes, then proceed. Continue to try and understand the problem and try to resolve it. And then, of course, you must keep stakeholders informed and aligned. And all that means is you must, every week that goes by, you should be able to send, an email or, organize a meeting with your stakeholders just to give them updates. What's happening? Over the last 2 weeks, over the last week, what have you been doing? So they know what's happening, and ultimately that can support you where you need their help. So these are some of the common pitfalls when creating a product vision and product strategy. Sometimes, they lack clarity. All that means is, the vision and the strategy are easily misunderstood. Sometimes they don't really make sense. You explain the problem, and then in your product strategy, you're doing something completely different. So they need to be seamless. Your product vision summarizes the problem and the solution, and then your product strategy is just a plan for how you hope to achieve that. So there must be an alignment. They must complement each other. And then sometimes people set overly ambitious goals. They want to, someone says, for example, in PalmPay's problem that I post, customers are currently able to open the PalmPay app and no password is required, which is unsafe. And so an overly ambitious goal might be, for instance, to allow customers to maybe use, you think of an overprotective security measure that would be very difficult to implement. That's overly ambitious. Whereas a low-hanging fruit, that's the easiest, simplest thing to do, might be just put a pin, a 4-digit pin. That should be enough. That brings safety immediately. So we must describe our solution in a way that is not overly complex. We keep it, simple. That's why within the product strategy, there's something known as your roadmap. Your roadmap starts off being very straightforward, and then slowly down the line, you can introduce really complex ways of solving the problems that customers are facing. And then something else that people fail to do is they neglect to gather customer feedback. That's not great. You must continuously gather and integrate customer feedback. So continuously speaking with customers to understand, how exactly the problem you've identified impacts them. And then, continuously integrating that feedback. And then once you've built the solution and launched the solution, again, you continue to understand how that problem might even be solved even better. And then lastly is poor communication. Sometimes as a PM, people can be so focused on a problem that they forget about the regularity in which they update stakeholders. So you need to regularly update and involve stakeholders in everything that you do. That's very important. That could be just having a one-on-one meeting with a stakeholder, just giving them feedback on how you're currently progressing. Communication, and that's one of the core things that we hope to help you, become really good at in this course is communication. Just being able to, have conversations. Don't keep things to yourself. Have conversations, because ultimately that will trickle down to you being an effective product manager. Any questions so far?
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead. Did you say you had a question?
There's no question for now.
Okay. Great. Let's move on. So, I realize that everything I've explained here is quite theoretical. That's great. We must understand the theory, and then we'll move on to its application. So here we're going to apply and show you how a product strategy could be created for a product. So you can see here, this product is a smart fitness tracker. Just give you an example so you can see what that looks like. For those of you, this is a smart fitness tracker. So when we think of product, I'm not referring to the physical product, I'm referring to the software within. All products need a software within to run it. For this thing to power on, it relies on the software. And for you to track the data, you can see here, for example, this smart fitness here, someone links it to their phone. Now this guy, Ryan Cleveland, has linked it to his phone, and he can monitor the metrics that this thing gathers. So all smart fitness trackers, you can connect them to a phone, and then you can get more data that helps you to understand the results better. So I hope you now know what a smart fitness tracker looks like. This is what it looks like. But more importantly, what we care about is the software that runs it. What software runs this? That's what we're discussing. That's what we'll be discussing. So this smart fitness tracker, it's essentially, there's several. You can see here, there's several. There's several of them in the market. There's these ones that you can see here in this image. They're all different brands, several brands in the market. So this example we're going to go through is a different brand that we're trying to launch in the market. Yeah, it's a different brand that is trying to be launched in the market. And as such, what's the first thing you do? So whether it's going to be a new brand in the market or it's an existing brand in the market, you always need to understand market analysis. So as part of our product strategy, in order for us to build a product strategy, we need to first understand market analysis. I mentioned this earlier. So all that means is we need to know who are our target audience. Who do we want to target? And so we've defined here that we want to target individuals that are age 18 to 45 that are interested in fitness and technology. These are the people we care about. Okay, and then what are the market trends? Market trends, as the name implies, is essentially where's the market going. If we look in the fitness and tech industry right now, we see that people are trying to understand their health even more profound, even better than they currently do. And these fitness trackers, they can tell you how many steps you've done in a day. They can tell you what's your resting heart rate. They can tell you so many core metrics that could help you track your health. And so these are the gadgets that these gadgets are evolving. So the market trends around the world is the rise of gadgets and the growing demand for them. Consumers are demanding lots of them. And they aren't really cheap. They're quite expensive. But nevertheless, there's an increase in demand for them. Consumers around the world are demanding them to help them monitor and track their health. And we see here in consumer needs that, again, consumer needs, why do people need this? They're looking for them from a convenience standpoint, real-time health tracking, and integration with smartphones. So these are things that customers are looking for. In terms of convenience, it's really good. I can simply put on a watch. It tells me how many steps I've done in a day. That's convenient. I don't have to maybe go to One Health center to do a check. This can tell me, and is real time. Real time just means it tells me right there at that moment how many steps I've done. And the integration with the smartphone, we saw an example here. Yes, with this one. That's what integration with a smartphone means. It just means I can link it to my phone and be able to get more insights that would help me learn more about my health. And then here we look at what's the total market size. We're only trying to target the African continent. So across Africa, the market size for this is 10 million users. So this is something we've not done yet, but everyone by the end of this class would by the end of next class will definitely know how to calculate a market size. This is, of course, as we all know, population in Africa. If I do a sample, what is the total population of Africa? You see, it's 1.2 billion. So Africa as a continent is 1.2 billion. That's quite big. However, we've not chosen to target the entire continent. We've only looked at it and said there are 10 million people that would be interested in buying this smart fitness tracker. And this is known as a total available market. These are the people that are into fitness and they love having gadgets to help them understand their fitness. And we've rounded that to 10 million people across Africa. Meanwhile, population is 1.2 billion. So you can see that this is a very conservative number. So for any company you join or any product that you do, you will have to do this. You have to be able to say what's the total market size that you're targeting. Okay, and then we'll move on to the next step, which is user persona. So we've done this research, market analysis, really looked across the market. It gives us insights on what customers are looking for and what's driving their interest. And then we look at essentially how do we link that to certain groups of people. So we create what's known as personas. Personas are descriptions that fit a group or a population of people. And from here, for example, persona group 1, we've designed this to be fitness enthusiasts. So people that are, they believe in fitness, people that train at the gym, people that exercise. These people, they will all fall under this persona. So it's not just for one person. We've called it persona fitness enthusiast to capture a range of people, and we've given it a name, fitness enthusiast Emily, to be someone that it's highly active and wants to be able to track their health in a way that helps them to understand better. So the age range that we chose is 28. Again, you can design your own persona and give it different age ranges that you see fit. But every persona that we do, you give it a name, you give it an age, and you give it a goal, and you give it what pain points does it resolve. What pain point do these people have? So anyone that falls under the fitness enthusiast group, what pain points do they have. So let's look through it. So we've said it doesn't mean everyone here has to be 28. That's not what it means. It just means anyone that has interest in fitness. Enthusiast is someone that actively exercises frequently or often. That person, you will call them, they're enthusiasts. They really believe in fitness, and you group them here. And then that person could be 35, could be 40, could be 60. It's irrelevant. So an age here is just a measure that on average you can say I have 60 people, but the average age is 28. You put that here. But it doesn't mean that everyone within those 60 people is 28. I just wanted to make that clear. And then what's the goal? The common goal that anyone that falls under this persona would have is they want to track their workouts, to monitor their sleep patterns, and to achieve fitness milestones. These are things that they require from a smart fitness tracker. And then what's the pain points that they have? Inconsistent workout tracking, lack of personalized insight. So they work out and they have no idea what their results are because they've not been tracking, and that's what's driving them to purchase a smart fitness tracker, something that will really help them to track their workouts in a way that will support their long-term goals, which is to track their workouts, monitor things like their sleep patterns. Okay, and then another persona is we have a busy professional. This person is really busy. We've given an average age of 35, and we've said that because they're busy, they want to use a smart fitness tracker to manage their stress, monitor their daily activity, and then integrate with work apps. Pain points that they have limited time for extensive workouts. They also have stress management challenges. So an app like this, a product like this will help them, will support them in managing their stress levels. So these are two personas. You can build up to 10 personas, as many as you see fit. But the benefit of writing personas as part of your product strategy is that it allows you not to target individual people, but instead to group people into different personas. So here we have two personas. If I ask, any of you within the group now and say, are you a fitness enthusiast? If you answer, well, yes, then you would fall under this persona. This might be reasons for you to buy the smart fitness tracker. And if you're a busy professional, you might be buying it for these reasons, to help you with managing stress, for example. So ultimately, these are some of the reasons why you can create personas. And they're great for that because they really help you to simplify and bring problems into groups rather than trying to target individual customers. That would be forever. It would take you really long to do so. So these are the core benefits of doing personas. And then in terms of value proposition, we said it earlier that you need a value proposition because your value proposition summarizes the benefits that you give to customers. Someone says, why do you have an iPhone? The benefit of an iPhone is it's perceived, it gives you that perceived innovative feel. So it's perceived that you're someone that likes innovative products. And in this sense, with Smart Fitness Tracker, a value proposition that we're trying to give to people is empowering your fitness journey anytime, anywhere. So each time you have your Smart Fitness Tracker on, it's calculating your steps. So we're helping you to get real-time data on, what your on your health, essentially. Each time you take a walk, we count the steps. So real-time fitness tracking, we can personalize your health insights. So if you took 10,000 steps, what does that mean for your health? We can tell you how that impacts your weight, how that impacts your blood pressure, how that impacts your resting heart rate. These are things that we'll be able to tell you. And there's, of course, this seamless integration with smartphones. I can connect my watch to my smartphone, and therefore I can gain access to more insights. I can learn more about how it's monitoring my health. I can also see stress management features that will really give me an overview of how some of the key stress metrics. Am I managing stress in a good way? It can show me. And then we look at in terms of the market, the existing market. So that's the competitive market, what's currently happening. So we look at competitor one. So this is a fictional competitor. So Opus Fitness Tracker. What do they do? So again, since as I showed you earlier, you can see that there are tons of products, different products. So you can see all of them, they're of different companies. So if you're going to launch one, you need to understand what are their strengths. These people here, what are their strengths? So understand all their strengths and weaknesses. And then you can decide, how do you fit in? Whenever you go somewhere, you need to understand what your strengths and weaknesses are. Then you can place yourself in a position of strength. So as a competitive analysis, we can see that competitor number one, their strengths are they have extensive features, and they've also established themselves. They're an established brand. So that means it's going to be difficult to oust them as the number one brand. But they do have weaknesses. The weaknesses are they have a complex interface, and they also sell their products at a high price point, which means not many people buy it. So that's good to know. And then we look at number two, the competitor number two. We see that their strengths is they have a slick design, a user-friendly app, nice. The weaknesses, they have limited stress management features. So you can look at all of these, and then you go back to your persona and you say, well, we know that busy professional Alex wants to manage stress. That's his goal. So if Alex wants to manage stress and we launch our product with really good stress management features, and because we're looking at weaknesses, we've looked at these weaknesses, we see that it's a complex interface and limited stress management features. Those are two weaknesses we've identified. If we put our product in the middle, we say our product is going to be very simple, easy to use, not complex, easy to use, low price point, and then our product will also include a good number of features for stress management. You can see that will fit in really well. Because we've looked at what weaknesses exist in the market, and then we've tried to make our product to solve those problems. And that's how you would do your competitive analysis. You will look at what your competitors currently do, what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, and then you will then try to differentiate your product by solving those problems that exist. And in terms of differentiation, you can see here, our smart fitness tracker combines advanced features with user-friendly design at an affordable price point. So we are right in the middle. We're not competing with 1 and 2. We are literally solving the problems that they failed to solve. And in turn, we attract customers. So any customer that wants a good product, that wants a smart fitness tracker that gives them access to a good range of stress management features, would immediately come to us. That wants a slick designed interface, would immediately come to us. So this is how you begin to attract customers without even doing any promotion yet. And then in terms of a product roadmap, which is something, again, this is another component of our product strategy, which is a roadmap. And what is a roadmap? A roadmap is effectively our plan to going live. So phase one, development, heart rate monitoring. That's something. So we break this down. We break down our product roadmap. Is how do we aim to launch this to customers? So you heard me earlier. I mentioned that when we go through the entire product plan, we then sit down the team, the engineering team. Engineering team is a composition of business analysts, QA engineers, UI, UX, architects, database engineers, and anyone that supports effectively the development of the product. And so a product roadmap, this is what we'll sit down with that team of people to explain to them what we're trying to do. So in the initial phase, you have what's known as phase one or phase zero. It depends how you want to frame it. It means the same thing. So in our first phase, these are the things that we need to allow us to launch the product. So we need to be able to build a software that supports heart rate monitoring, step tracking, sleep analysis, and then also allow users to integrate this to their smartphones. And initially, we're going to focus on Android OS. That means operating system. So Samsung, Huawei, and many other Android OS. So these will be our go live brands. So these will be our go live features. These are the key things we'll focus on. And then once we've done this, we'll then move on to the next phase, phase two. So we can say phase one might take, let's say, 6 months, because these three items, potentially, once you break them down to then write the business requirements, they might take so much longer. Okay. So phase one, once you break, it seems like it's not enough things in here, but actually once you break these down, the things that have to be done, it's a lot, and that would take an entire team. So your business analyst to write the user stories, acceptance criteria, QAs to test what the engineers will build, the UI UX to then create and design the user interface. All of that takes time. So you can say this might take 6 months, 3 months. As a PM, that's where project managers will come in. They will help with the estimation of the timelines. And then phase two, okay? These are the things that we'll then do as enhancements. And then phase three, in our expansion, these are the things that we'll then do. So being able to phase this out in a product roadmap, and then now this is something that I can take to have conversations with several people within the company. And then lastly, being able to track key metrics. So KPIs. In designing all of these things and being able to build them and launch, it's nice, but we need to be able to track to say how well are we doing. So here then we have user engagement. So one of the key metrics that you want to track is how many people are using the smart fitness tracker daily or weekly. The more people are using it, it means that it's good. And then what features are people using? The more features people use, then if those features have problem, you should aim to resolve them immediately. So feature utilization rates are crucial because they allow you to be able to they allow you to be able to understand when, essentially when some features are not being used, you can cut them back and cut down support and then provide more support to the features that more people use. And then customer satisfaction rates, how well are customers satisfied with what you do. So your App Store ratings, if you go on the App Store or Google Play Store, what's that rating like? User reviews. So all of these things help you to understand customer satisfaction. If they are positive, then it means that your app is really good. And then revenue. How many people are actually buying the product? That's your monthly recurring revenue. And then average revenue per user. How many, each user, do you have, subsequent things that they buy? If you do, all of these, they help you to track how impactful your product is in the market. So overall, that is your product strategy in place. So we've talked about the product vision and the product strategy, and this here is your product strategy in place. So we've looked at market analysis, we looked at user persona, we looked at value proposition, we looked at competitive analysis, we looked at a product roadmap, and we looked at how you evaluate the success of your product strategy, which is your key metrics. So I'll share this with everyone. Please spend time going through it during the week, because this is something I would want for everyone to be able to create. The good news is every company you join, they will have a product strategy already. So you will they may just ask you, for example, we need you to create some personas. It may not be as linear as this. I say, go ahead and create a product strategy from scratch for a smart fitness tracker. They may tell you, well, we have a product strategy already. We just want to optimize our value proposition, for instance. And then, like I said, you will then go ahead and try to understand your market analysis. So you read your market analysis. If they've written one, if they have not written one, that's fine. You can get this insights by giving you the key headers here of what to look out for. So you will simply say, I need to understand our target market, and then they will point you to where you can get that information and then draw the insights and summarize them. You can then say, I need to understand market trends. This you should know yourself. All you need to do is go on Google and search whatever product you're trying to optimize, and then understand the trends in that industry. And then here, consumer needs, again, the same thing. What are consumers asking for? And then this is just trying to understand the market size of people that face that problem and how many of them are willing to solve it. Next week, we will do a market sizing exercise, and you would know how to do this. And so what we've gathered here then is that if you're asked to do a product strategy from scratch, you can do one, because these are the things that you will need to include. You need to include market analysis, user persona, value proposition, competitive analysis, product roadmap, and a key metric and analytics in your documentation. And this, if you did this in a Google document, it can maybe be 3 or 4 pages, because as I said, these are just summaries, but you would have to write detailed paragraphs describing, for instance, describing your target market. The target market is going to be between 18 to 45, and then justifying why. So all of that, by the time you finish everything, it should take you to around 3 or 4 pages, and that will be that. And then we think about user personas. Again, the same thing. If you join a company, let's say you join Google or you join Access Bank, in Nigeria and they really want to optimize their products to younger people, and they've tasked you with helping them to form those user personas. You can, how you might form this as well is you can create surveys and interviews. Yeah, because I said earlier that there are two forms of gathering primary research. One is your being able to define your quantitative interviews, your quantitative focus data, which is essentially surveys, and then your qualitative methods, which is interviews or focus groups. And you will do that, and then that can help you to identify what personas, and how would you know? You then look at the age in the surveys that you designed. I think many of you had age in there. If you didn't, that's fine, no issue. But you will then look at the questions, and those questions will help you. Once you analyze them, you will then be able to draw specifically the insights that will help you to form some of the product strategy components. So as I said, each company you join will be different. You might join a company and they ask you to create a product strategy from scratch. You should be able to do that. You may join a different company and they ask you, actually, we need you to help us to complete a competitive analysis of the existing market. They can do that. And you should have the skills to do this. You shouldn't say, I have no idea how to do so. You should know how to research the market. Simply go in the market, you look at the first competitor. What do they do? How long have they done it? So you gather their strengths and their weaknesses. Then you move on to the next competitor. You gather their strengths and their weaknesses. So in the end, you then summarize where your company needs to sit. That's known as a differentiation. So if your company is a smart fitness tracker, then you say what they need to do. What they need to do is to combine advanced features with user-friendly design at an affordable price point. So that's a synthesis. That's a summary of the problems that you've identified, and essentially it's a summary of the weaknesses that you believe your company needs to resolve in order to gain a market share. So any questions? Okay, I've also put together this plan to help you create a product strategy. But for the week, I think the core exercise I want everyone to do is two things. The first thing I mentioned earlier is to summarize the product vision. And I did say a product vision composes of two things. I'll add it here so you guys can product vision, problem statement, and solution statement. So that's the first thing. And then which is, I want you guys to look at your research, using the survey that you did. What is the problem that you identified? Summarize the problem identified from your survey. And then here, summarize the solution. How do you wish to resolve the problem? And then the next thing is I think that's enough, because I know most of you haven't done the exercise. So James, I think so far you're the only one. James and Grace have done it. Grace has definitely done it. So for you guys, going through the survey that you did, tell me about the problem statement and the solution statement. And for those of you that haven't done it, please get that done. You can rewatch last week's class. Some of you were added late to it, so this is the video of last week's class. Please, it's here. Go and watch it, and in there you will see how you need to resolve for you to create that survey. And just briefly, I can explain what I want to be done. Essentially, I want you to think of a company of your choice and create a survey that helps them to understand a problem that exists in their world. For example, if you choose to pick Access Bank, you can then write 10 questions. You can write 10 questions that anyone can complete, and then do 10 of those. Take 10 questions. So do a minimum of 5 responses. So responses can be like this. So you can see responses from 5 people. That's what I did. And then you summarize. Okay, respondent number 1, these were their responses to the 10 questions. Respondent number 2, these were their responses to the 10 questions. So give me minimum 5 of those. And then you move on to the next one, into the analysis phase. You can put it in a table format like this. And then you can do this, or you can skip it. You don't need to do this. This is just good because it allows you to see what the responses were. I can see more comparatively, respondent 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can see exactly what that looks like. I can see the commonalities here, voice. I can see voice commands, that appears 3 times. It's much visual. You don't have to do it this way. You can simply just summarize it like this and skip the table format and go straight to your insights. So the summary is where you start drawing insights and then really understanding the problem. What problems have you identified from the questions? Any question on this, guys? I prefer that you ask questions than to not do it. Please ask your questions now so I can explain some more. If there's anything that you didn't really understand that held you back, please ask the question now. You can use a pen and paper and simply write and create 10 questions and get people, to give you the responses for them, and then you can use your phone and synthesize them. Another way of what you can do, you can also use apps out there. I think survey apps. There are a number of them. There's this one. Oof. A free one that I always use is SurveyMonkey. It's free, but it's quite limited, but nevertheless it's free. As a product manager, you should be adept at researching things. Survey apps, you simply put this on Google. You can do this on your phone. You don't need a laptop for this, and do it on your phone. Just test them out. Feel free to test out these things, play with them. Remember, if you find a really good survey app, when you join a company, you're already ahead of it. It means if they ask for you to do a survey, you can quickly, get it done. And that proactivity is really good. It makes you look, very effective. So to be proactive, it's one of the core things that I want everyone to take away from the course. To be very proactive, just engage and eager. That's something that Western employers look for. Okay, any questions, guys, before we wrap up for the evening?
I'm good, thank you.
That's okay. Welcome. If you have any question in terms of completing the survey, just let me know. We can meet during the week, and I can take you through exactly what to do.
Okay, thank you so much.
That's okay. Welcome. And so reading for the week. And since I've just added you to the group as well, so in here we have a book that we read every week. So it's here. Simply scroll all the way to the top. It's the second one, Product Management Jumpstart. You click on it and go all the way. For this week, we are in chapter 4. So that's chapter 1. Go all the way to chapter 4. That's what we are to read this week. They're really very short passages just to help you get an idea. And for last week, when you saw here, I'm just looking at his customer interviews, surveys. The reason why I compliment them and make sure that we go through concepts in the class, and then during the week, you then go over them and read a chapter. It just to solidify and give you more insight. So this week then, we are reading chapter 4, I believe. Yeah, chapter 4. Yeah, so next week, by Sunday, you should have read chapter 4, and as well as to do the exercise for the week, which is your product vision statement. I will share these slides so you have them to go over. And in it, I said you should be able to write a problem statement utilizing the insights that you gathered from your survey. Summarize the problem identified from your survey, and then summarize the solution. How do you wish to resolve the problem that you identified? And I've said that a minimum of 2 paragraphs. I want everyone to get used to writing, long paragraphs that explain, business writing. It's crucial. Okay. Thank you, guys. That's all for the week.